Lonely Monk Productions.
I don't know if y'all have heard Pretty Liar by Shania Twain yet, but yo.
That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt and...
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Jawn Penn, a.k.a. Nate 3.0. Back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I am joined in conversation by Laura Lizcano. We chatted up about her latest album, Daughter of the Sea, and so much more. That's coming up in a bit here. But first, how are you guys holding up, man? January 2020 me is in the books, and we're just jumping right into February already. Ain't no stopping us. You know, and on that front, I just want to give you guys a little programming note. We have some timing-specific interviews coming up, so we're actually going to have 3 episodes this month. This one, the one you're listening to right now, one next week on the 13th, and then one on the 20th, all before settling back into our regular schedule. And look, before you think that I'm doing that thing that you know I do, where I say, guys, I totally have this thing coming up, and then I don't because, I don't know, scheduling or ADHD, or I don't flake. Look, I already have those interviews recorded, so it's happening. For reals, for sure, 3 episodes this month. This one, the 13th and the 20th. But yeah, man, we're doing so good over here. As I mentioned we were going to last episode, Katie and I got to check out G Love and Donovan Frankenreiter at the TLA, and fam, that show was incredible. The two put a band together with Chuck Treese on drums and Matt Grundy on bass, and they sound so good. It's like super tight and just dialed all the way in together. I really hope they put something out as this outfit because it's just phenomenal, and I want the whole world to be able to hear it. And shouts out to Nat Myers, who opened up the show with his soothing sounds of folky blues, man. Definitely keep an eye out for him. Much love to G for the invite and the hospitality. The show was definitely one for the ages. And you know we had to stop across the street at Lorenzo's before going home for a slice of pizza. Oh, man. Okay, well, you know, I mentioned some of those scheduling changes before. The best way to stay on top of those scheduling kerfluffles I mentioned previously is to get yourself on the mailing list. Visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com and sign up to get the updates delivered straight to your inbox. And guys, while you're there, we got some merch for sale. Click that little shop button and get yourself a sweet Yo, That's My Jawn t-shirt, or a Jauntlet t-shirt, or a sweatshirt, or a baby doll tee. Actually, I don't know if we have baby doll tees. I just always thought that was a fun phrase to say, you know? Baby doll tees. I don't know. All right, sorry, I got sidetracked. Visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com and sign up for the mailing list. Check out the merch, read some articles, all that good stuff. And follow us on the socials at Yo, That's My Jawn. Bet. Okay, short break for me to play that ad that you've heard for 2 years now that I probably should re-record sometime soon, but I haven't because I'm lazy. And then we will be back with my interview with Laura Lizcano. Yo, That's My Jawn is brought to you by Anchor.fm. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Take a seat. Let me explain. It's free. It costs nothing. $0 and 0 cents. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Me? I'm doing this from my iPad. It's that simple. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more podcast providers. What's that mean? That means when someone says, hey, how do I find your podcast? You go, you ever hear of a little app called Spotify? Boom, it's there. What's that in your hand, an iPhone? Boom, go to your podcast app. I'm there. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Right from the beginning, straight out the gate, you can make money. Season 1 made me so much money, I could afford a cup of coffee at Starbucks. A grande. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm. My guest today is a Colombian-born singer-songwriter who combines her formal training as a jazz vocalist with her love of folk, pop, and contemporary classical music. She has been featured in the virtual Wawa Welcome to America Festival in 2020 and has been a part of the legendary Philadelphia Folk Festival in the years 2020 and 2021. She has recently released her sophomore album, The Beautiful Daughter of the Sea, a 12-song introspective that addresses a wide range of topics, from breaking generational traumas and grappling with immigrant identity to sexual desire and learning radical self-love, and features contributions from Aaron Bush and the Daedalus Quartet. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show Laura Lizcano. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Laura Lizcano. Thank you so much for joining me today on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Yeah, it's so great to meet you. Thank you for having me.
So the first time I ever heard anything about you at all was when Overworked and Overpaid, when you released that. And I've been for years now wondering, when you wrote that, was it specifically about a place you were working, and did they hear that song?
Man, I was working in so many places at that time. And I'm sure they did, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's also, if you were working at multiple places, easy to pass off and say, no, not you guys, the other guys.
Yeah, it was, it was definitely I was definitely a little bit nervous about releasing that track. Precisely because of that, because I also didn't want to get fired from anywhere.
Sure. Yeah.
And nobody said anything, so it was I'm sure it was fine.
That's cool. That is so cool. Well, I always like to start things off jumping in the Wayback Machine and going back to small child stuff. So tell me a little bit about where you were born.
Yeah, so I'm from Colombia. I was born in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, and I came to the U.S. when I was 10 years old, and I've been here ever since.
Oh, that's so incredible. When you were a kid, what kind of music was playing around the house? What were your folks listening to?
There was a lot of different things going around because my brother Alejandro was doing his undergrad for classical bass performance at the time, and he was still living at home. So I would hear him practice all the time, and a lot of that rep is Bach and sort of very traditional things. So I was hearing a lot of that. And he was working in this orchestra, so we would go see all of those concerts. And so there's definitely a lot of classical music in my world. And my parents, my dad, he's very cheesy, and he loved Andrea Bocelli and kind of the big ballad singer. So that was a lot of what I listened to in the car as a kid. And my mom was very into Latin American folk singer-songwriters. So I was hearing Violeta Parra and Mercedes Sosa, who are very, very much staples in that tradition of music. So yeah, there was a lot going on.
Yeah. That's so cool. The with your brother playing classical and stuff like that, was that kind of where the drive to want to make music came from? Watching him do it, or?
Yeah, I think a little bit, but I also think that for me there was definitely an early obsession with singers.
Yeah.
I think there was something for me about singer-songwriters that I was just as a little kid that was really it just really stuck with me. And so that was kind of the very early era of Shakira when she was getting big in Colombia, and she had this record out called Pies Descalzos that was a huge hit, and and so that's kind of like, I just remember wanting to be like her and wanting to dance and be on stage. And I think it was actually more of an obsession of wanting to be like the singers. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you move at 10, you come to Pennsylvania. Is that where you guys ended up here?
Yeah, I ended up in central Pennsylvania in a little town just like 45 minutes north of Harrisburg.
Okay. What town? I have family out that way.
It's like Elizabethville, Loyalton, Likens area. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Very cool. And coming here, were there singer-songwriters here that you hadn't been exposed to before that kind of piqued your interest?
Yeah, I do remember like in middle school obsession with Kelly Clarkson.
Oh, that's cool.
And when I got a little bit older, then it was like Regina Spektor and Norah Jones. And yeah, so definitely specifically female singer-songwriters.
Yeah, sure. Like what was like at that time? Were you like in chorus or anything like that? Or
Oh my God, yeah, I was in everything. I was in band, I was in choir, I did all the musicals. Yeah, it was like I filled my life with, I think, as much music as possible. I think it was such a blessing to be in a school district that had even though it was very rural, that did have a lot of opportunities for kids to participate in music activities, and it had a pretty robust music program. So that was a huge blessing for me, and it just like became my life. Yeah,
that's awesome. You said one of my favorite words ever, which is musicals. What kind of shows were you in back then?
The first one I was ever in was an Annie Jr. And I was just like one of the choir members, and then we did like a junior version of Fiddler on the Roof, and I was one of the daughters. And in high school we did, man, I'm having to like go back in time. We did You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and I was Sally in that one. And we did Oklahoma, and I was the best friend. I'm like forgetting her name right now, but
I can't remember her name either. But it's funny that I was just going to say my first musical was, well, one of my first musicals was Oklahoma as well. Except for I was just a lowly cow person. I was there to fill a seat and to dance and to sing. So.
Yeah, but I mean, it was so much fun for me. It was like musical season was probably my favorite part of the year.
Yeah, definitely. When did you start like kind of crafting your own stuff? Like, were you kind of writing songs and melodies then, or?
Yeah, in high school I was in this band called Strawberry Underground. That was like a rock band with some friends, and we used to like write songs together. And so I think those are like the kind of like the early crafts, early moments of my craft, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. If I dig deeply, can I find Strawberry Underground on like Bandcamp and stuff?
You'll definitely find, I think there was a Bandcamp, and definitely on YouTube there are some videos. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm going to deep dive after this. That's like one of my favorite things. I love, like, one of my favorite things is to find like projects before people kind of found themselves and found their voice, because like there's always hints there,
Yeah, totally. And I think definitely hints in those early years for sure.
Yeah. So then you went to school at Temple directly out of high school. Did you go to Temple, or did you go anywhere in between? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I went straight to Temple after graduating high school, and I was a jazz studies voice performance major. And that's how I landed in Philly.
Oh, that's so. What was that? Was that experience like coming to from the small rural burbs of Harrisburg to the big town?
Yeah, I mean, it actually felt a little bit like a coming home, because Bogota, the city that I'm from, is quite large. It's actually slightly bigger than New York, and I was just very glad to be in an urban setting again. I'm definitely not a country gal.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, definitely like that first semester was a little scary. Like I wasn't sure how to take the subway, and wasn't sure how to navigate the city and all the stuff that you have to learn as a freshman. But it was but at the same time, it was really amazing, like having music so available to you, like live music, which is not something that rural areas have access to as much. And that for me was very valuable. And obviously, like the university having so many resources, and yeah, it just really opened up my world in many ways. So it was really great.
That's incredible. Those early days, where were like your favorite places to hang out for music and stuff like that?
Man, we used to go to Chris's Jazz Cafe like a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like it was one of those places where like you didn't like you could go in if you weren't 21. And obviously like all of our friends were playing, and it was just like kind of like the spot where a lot of jazz would end up when I was a freshman. So that was kind of, and I was in jazz school, so
Yeah.
It was also kind of like part of the study for me. And then later on, like South opened up. I forget exactly what year South opened up. That's on like Spring Garden and Broad. So I would hang out there a lot because they had a jam session, and then when I was 21, then I could go to Time. So I was going to the Sunday night jam session a lot, and that was definitely a hang. And kind of halfway through college, the Not So Latin series started. That was Arturo Stable and my friend Dariel, and all the folks who lived in that house or still live in that house in South Philly, who had started like a concert series, and that was also a great hang. So every Tuesday night, almost every Tuesday, I would be there, and yeah, it was just very community centered, I guess.
Sure. The so how did you find jazz to be kind of your drug, essentially? Like, what was the path to get there?
Yeah, I think it's like I didn't have an opportunity to take voice lessons when I was in high school, but I wanted to go to music school, and I knew that I wanted to sing, and I knew that I didn't necessarily have the technique and the skills to be able to get into a classical program. So I kind of opted more towards the jazz world. And my brother at the time had also just completed a master's in jazz studies as well. So I had sort of understanding a little bit of how that academic world worked, and that I knew eventually that I wanted to sing more pop music and write my own things. And I just felt that it was more feasible for me to get there if I did a jazz degree as opposed to a classical degree. And it was just like kind of my way into music school.
Oh, that makes sense. The you had mentioned Nora Jones and Regina Spektor. Like the influence is definitely there. What was the draw like for you for them? Because like I the same, like the first time I heard Come Away With Me when that album came out, like it completely like knocked me off my feet. Like I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't prepared. And then the same thing the first time I heard Regina Spektor, like it was like I didn't know you could do this. You know what I mean? Like like they're a perfect like 1-2 punch of kind of jazz pop,
Yeah, absolutely. I think specifically for Regina, I think it was kind of like when Begin to Hope had come out, and it was like that track, I Never Loved Nobody Fully, that like super hit that she had. And I was kind of reading about her and had found out that she was also an immigrant, that she came here when she was very young. And so I think I saw myself a lot in her journey. And yeah, I think that was for me kind of like the entry point, and why she was so important, or she is so important to me, is that, it was so important for me to see like an immigrant woman singing her own songs, and that they were like kooky and kind of weird and not necessarily like cookie cutter in that way, which I felt very connected to. So I think that's Regina in my life has been a huge influence. And I think Nora Jones, a little bit the same reasons. I think, she's not a white woman. She's not like the cookie cutter pop star. And I think it was easier for me to see myself doing that kind of music and succeeding in the same way that Nora and Regina kind of have. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, like one of the themes that we talk about a lot on here, and one that I really enjoy talking about, is the concept of representation and being able to see yourself and kind of create in a space where it's like, oh, I'm allowed to do this. Like, I didn't know, that kind of like permission almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for me, listening to Regina and Nora is like a lot of permission, right? And I think a lot about Nora Jones and the way that like her music is very, I hate to say soft, but it's not like produced in a way that is like pop loud, right?
Yeah.
And she's not, I mean, I feel like she's gotten more into her belting voice in her later years, but she's definitely not like a huge belter in the way that like Lady Gaga and Beyonce are, right? So yeah, I think with her music, I felt a lot of permission to sing in that way, to not have to like overperform and to just be like really authentic, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, like it's something that like, that has always kind of spoken to me, because it's the kind of music to me, and the music you create beautifully represents this as well. It's the kind of music that like I just want to put on and I can just kind of exist with, where it's not like overpowering or trying to demand that it be heard. It's like, if you want to hear this, you can hear this, and when you listen, you're going to hear something very great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome. So around what time do you start kind of crafting the idea that let's put an album together? Like,
yeah, so I think that was my first year out of college, which is that like huge drop off when you're like, I'm going to be amazing. I just graduated college with an art degree and I'm going to do amazing things. And then you're working a coffee shop job.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just like, I really wanted to put some of my own stuff together because I really needed to like validate myself in that way as an artist, and, working sort of part-time and various different things, I had the time to kind of put together a project. And that's when I put together my first EP, which was called Chance on Me. And I recorded that like, I think a year after I had graduated. And that was the first baby.
Yeah. And it's absolutely beautiful. Like, I didn't know that EP existed. Like I said, the first time I heard you was in 2020. And I kind of thought that Heart was the beginning of it all. And then like, in doing this, I got to go back and kind of, discover it. And it's funny too, because like, as I'm listening to, Daughter of the Sea, the new album, and listening to Heart and stuff like that, I was always like, man, I'd love to see this live. I wonder what your sound would be like how you would represent that in a live setting. And then I found that EP doing the research and all, and I was like, oh, it sounds just as, if not more, brilliant. Like it translates really well, and like it's exciting to me to know that like that because a lot of times when you have some really beautiful instrumentation on your stuff, and a lot of times not that it doesn't translate live, but it's hard to put together a live band to recreate it, and I was like incredibly blown away at how full that live recording sounded.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, yeah, definitely. That was definitely more of like a resourceful thing of like, I didn't have enough money to spend like lots of days in the studio and get clean tracks of each instrument, and and so I had kind of decided to just do it like a live concert. And so we did like 2 takes of every song, and then that was it, yeah, so I really appreciate that. I think I feel lots of ways about that first baby.
Of course.
So it's very nice to hear that perspective. And yeah, I mean, I think like going to jazz school, that's how you're trained. You're not trained to like think about the studio first. You're trained to think about the stage, or like in the moment at all times. So I think I was coming at it also from that perspective. I hadn't really had the chance to think about really what it would look like in the studio, to separate and isolate everything, just because that wasn't something that I had really been exposed to at that time.
Yeah. Have you worked with the same musicians throughout each project, or has it been rotating? Or
I think that the band on Chance on Me, I think the only one that still remains in the band is Silas Irvine, who's on the piano. And Andrew Carson, who's on the trumpet on that record, is also on Heart. But the band has kind of like morphed, I think. I think the full band is more of the one that was on Heart. The core band is the same one on Heart as it is on Daughter of the Sea.
Okay. Putting that together, how did you go about kind of selecting who you wanted to kind of invite into that project? Because, like you said, jazz is such a kind of collaborative, kind of in the moment thing. So you kind of have to have people around you that you can rely on that hey, if I happen to make a left here, you're going to follow with me. And then also maybe show me how to use a turn signal,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the reason I really love playing with the band that's on Heart and Daughter of the Sea is because they're folks who have been playing with singers a lot, and so they're just very aware of how to accommodate for that setting, I think. And Joe Plowman, who's the bass player on the record, plays with Carsey Blanton, so he's also very familiar with just like folk pop music, which is very much what I'm trying to do, and so that it made a lot of sense for Joe to be in the band. And Gusten also plays with the drummer also plays with a lot of pop groups, so it was kind of like a blend of things, right? Like the skill set was the right skill set. They play with singers, they play pop music, they play jazz, so it's kind of like all of the right elements. And then Dariel, who plays the guitar, again, he's just also trained in jazz, but also has a Latin American background, so he loves a lot of the same music that I do, and I think we just connect on that level very well. So I think, it just, the band organically became what it became, I think, for all of those reasons.
No, it's cool. It's super cool. When you're writing, you're the primary writer on the majority of these songs. A little bit of compositional help, right? On some tracks, but primary, it's you. What's kind of your process? Like how do you kind of do you lyric first, or do you play and kind of?
Yeah, I think I definitely start with words. But I definitely don't have like a full set of lyrics before I start playing them. I think I kind of start with a little idea and play it at the piano or with the ukulele, and then the song kind of starts forming from there. And I try to have like a solid sketch of what the song is gonna be, and then I make the lead sheet. And I think a really cool part of the process is like taking it to the band and figuring out like, okay, what does the intro sound like? What does the outro sound like? How are the verses different from the choruses? And I think that piece of it is very collaborative. But yeah, I think the bulk of it is like my gut telling me what to do.
Sure.
And I reference a lot of other music, right? I think on Daughter of the Sea, especially, a huge reference was Fiona Apple, and I think I hate to say stole, but I think all artists steal other artists' ideas, but I had definitely a lot of like the drum grooves and things that were like directly referenced from some of her stuff. So yeah, I think borrowing a lot in that way is a lot how I work as well.
Yeah, well, all the best music is borrowed. I mean, like the Beatles, who everybody kind of looks to, were all borrowing from every sound that they But I think, and that's one of the things that I think is I'll get a little woo woo here, but one of the things that I think is beautiful about music and beautiful and a reflection of America is kind of taking things from all cultures and kind of melding them into a pot. You might even call it a melting pot, and then brewing something beautiful. So yeah, steal away is what I say. Just make it your own, and you've made things. Like a reference point is music. Like that's just
yeah, for sure.
It's all been done. is what like. So
Yeah.
let's do it some more. Like that's the way I look at it. Like but I used to have a solo original kind of career as a musician. Not career. I played out. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But my entire thing was borrowed from G Love. So I will never throw a rock at anybody saying I may have borrowed this. So.
No, but that's awesome. That's awesome.
You mentioned kind of writing with the ukulele. How great is that of an instrument to just kind of work things out on? Like I'm a big fan. It was late in life before I kind of discovered the glory of the uke. But
yeah, I have really enjoyed writing with the ukulele. I think also it keeps me really honest because it, I mean, I play quotation marks the ukulele. I know some chords.
Sure.
And I say it keeps me really honest because it really forces me to think about just like the core essentials instead of like kind of getting carried away with all of the jazz voicings on the piano. So I really love that about writing on the ukulele is that it just like forces me to be simple and concise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Daughter of the Sea is the latest album, and it's absolutely beautiful from start to finish. Like I've listened to it pretty much nonstop all week from when I started. Like it's really, really good. And reading about it, you started working on it over the pandemic.
Yeah.
Do you think this is one of those heady questions, and I don't know if there's an answer to it. Do you think this album would exist the way that it sounds without being locked in your house like the rest of us were?
Absolutely not. Yeah, because this album is so reflective, right? I think we all had to spend so much time with ourselves and like looking at ourselves. And I mean, the way I process things and have always processed things is through music and through songwriting. And I think in a way it was kind of inevitable that in that situation, that would happen, right?
Sure.
So yeah, I think I had never been blessed in a way. I hate to say that the pandemic was a blessing, but I do want to say that there was a blessing of time to really spend time with my craft and to really be alone with myself and have the time to just like be with myself that I think allowed me to write in a way that I had never done before.
When you started, were you thinking of the album as a complete thought, or were they songs that just kind of came to you and you kind of found the theme kind of allowing itself to be discovered?
Yeah, I think when I started writing like the title track, Daughter of the Sea, I think that's when like the aha moment came that like, oh, all of the stuff you've been working on is like all towards one thing. So I think when that song was kind of completed, I was like, right. And then all like the rest of the songs kind of just like started falling out of me because then I had like a very clear goal of like what was happening. But it's funny how like your subconscious kind of works in mysterious ways sometimes.
Yes, it does. For good and for bad.
Yes, exactly.
But in this instance, very good. For very good. One of the things that occurs in this album that is absolutely beautiful to me are the 4 interludes with the Daedalus Quartet. When did the concept of putting that together happen? Because it gives it such like almost like a chaptered kind of framework to the album, and I think it's very successful in its execution.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, those came about. I think I really wanted Erin Bush to write for this record. She's a PhD composition student at Penn, and I knew I wanted strings on this album, and I had approached Erin about writing strings specifically for Blood is Thicker Than Water, the title track, and she was like, yes, and what if we also created these like moments in between the tracks to add something else? Because I feel like she felt like her voice was more towards that kind of chamber music. And I was like, yes, that's interesting. And I do think that the album needs like a little bit of glue to hold it all together. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, and she wrote those 4 interludes and they were just so beautiful. And I think it made a lot of sense because we both really love Carolyn Shaw and like her string quartet compositions. And it just like, yeah, it just made so much sense in the context of everything. And she did such a beautiful job writing those pieces.
Absolutely, and like I said, like it is like it weaves its way to kind of make everything kind of gel, and it's not out of place because there is that threat of throwing something like that in somewhere that might just kind of be disjoining and stuff like that, but it just fits so perfectly.
Yeah, I think I really love like the transition between the first track and then the first interlude where she's like, she really literally takes the last little bit of the song that is playing and she puts it bum, 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 just like slowed down. Which is like, for me, when I heard it all put together was like mind blowing.
Sure.
And the same thing with the one that happens right before Gravity, because then it's just the strings starting Gravity. So yeah, it just like, it's really beautiful.
It really is. It's like the songs themselves are incredibly beautiful, but then you throw that in and it's just like, it's absolutely wonderful. It almost leaves me speechless, like trying to find the words.
Well, thank you so much. That's very kind.
Oh, no worries. The other thing that really stands out in this beautifully is that you sing in your native tongue on this album. Was that something consciously going in that you wanted to do more of, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big takeaways from Heart was that people really love the 2 songs that are in Spanish from Heart.
Right.
And I think, as like a human being, I am bilingual. I'm an immigrant, and I think that is a very important part of my identity to me. So it's something that I'm always working on, is trying to continue to incorporate both of my languages into my music in a very kind of seamless way. And and I think I just really, really wanted to have songs in Spanish that not only kind of, not just about the language, but also had a little bit of influence from other Latin American women in them. And Caos, the first track specifically, is inspired by this book by Laura Restrepo that's called Delirio. Or Delirium. And so like it's kind of like reflecting the chaos that's happening in the book in a different way. But happy to talk more about that if you want. But
absolutely. The floor is yours. You can talk about anything. No, I mean it's fascinating to me, and I love hearing kind of what is behind what moves me so much. So.
Yeah, I think, well, specifically talking about Caos, the first track is that in the book Delirium, the kind of the plot is that it's a woman who's kind of reliving a traumatic event, and she's kind of like dissociated, and her partner is trying to figure out like what happened and trying to bring her out of that dissociative state, I guess. And so he kind of has to like track all of the pieces of what happened, and the bulk of it is very much about like being a Colombian woman and this like kind of idea in Latin America in general that like we don't talk about stuff, we sweep it under the rug. And so what I did is like kind of like took some of my favorite phrases from the book and I wrote them out in little pieces of paper, and I kind of started sort of collaging them together and cutting them up. And then like that was fascinating because then a totally different story came out of it, but kind of with like similar themes. So it was super interesting to me that that I was able to kind of craft and weave all of that together.
Ah, it's super beautiful. Have you been able to? Well, first of all, is the author still alive?
Very much alive. She teaches at a university on the East Coast. I can't remember which one right now, but she continues to write. She's very celebrated, very talented woman.
Very good. Well, I didn't want to presume and then ask this question and then have you go, Nate, she passed away. No. But have you been able to put this song in her ear at all? Do you know if she's heard it?
I haven't, and I think part of the reason that I haven't is because I'm afraid she'll think that I'm plagiarizing her. But maybe that's like a silly fear, and I should just send it to her.
Yeah, I think so. I think if just think about if you poured your heart and soul into something, and then someone created something as beautiful as you have, and was like, "Hey, I was inspired by something you did, and this is what I created." That would be like the most flattering thing in the world.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Right?
I will write her an email tonight.
Yeah. Now, here's the deal. If she then turns around and sues you, just don't blame me. Don't hate me if that happens.
I won't.
No,
Promise.
I kid. But so that kind of opens, and then we close the album with a continuation of the story presented by David Bowie of Major Tom. That's a bold thing to take. So it's like two bold bookends of reimaginations. Tell me a little bit about the where Major Tom came from for you.
Yeah. This one's a little bit of a funny long story. I will try to make it short. So during the pandemic, I was taking these classes through Pig Iron Theater Company. Movement, like theater-based movement classes. Anyway, and one of the exercises that I had learned through that workshop was that like you took an image and you looked at it and you tried to like tell the story of the image through movement. And, during the lockdown, like we're not doing anything. I have a lot of time on my hands. And I just found this image of David Bowie as Major Tom, like very interesting. And so like I kind of started doing the exercise, and part of the exercise is to also do some vocalizations. And then I kind of started, that's kind of where the lyrics started to come from. And then the storyline that I wove through that was like, well, what happened to Major Tom, right? Like, and I remember while I was doing the exercise, I had put the voice memo on to catch some of the things that I was saying. There were like a lot of questions that were coming up for me of like, are you hungry? Are you scared? And then I kind of borrowed that like, and tell me, do the stars look different today?
Which is a beautiful line. I love that.
Which is part of like the original track, right? And
yeah.
And then I kind of, as I was kind of crafting together, then in my brain it kind of restructured and was reimagined as like sung from the perspective of Major Tom's wife, of like who she gets left behind, and she's like, well, I'm sad and I'm lonely and I'm wondering what happened to you. And that's also kind of like the narrative that we created for the music video. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and the music video too is absolutely incredible. And you did some work there with the Almanac Dance Circus Theater prior to that. But how did that? What's your relationship with them, other than providing music for them in the past and kind of working with them that way?
Yeah, I actually met Ben, who is the leader of Almanac Dance Circus Theater. He hates that we say that about him, but it's true. So I'm sorry, Ben, when you hear this. But I had met him and his partner, Nick, in a different workshop taught by Magda San Milan. It was like a writing workshop that I also took during the pandemic. And like months later, it's 2021, and Ben messages me on Instagram and he's like, hey, I really love your music. Would you be interested in writing music for the show that we're doing called Happy Hour? And I was like, cool, great. Yeah, I'll do it. Like, awesome. I was like super excited to just get back to doing art again with people. And that's kind of how our collaborative relationship began. And then I really loved working with them. Working with acrobats is like an incredibly mind-blowing experience, just the things that they're able to do with their bodies and how aware they are of each other in a room, and how scary it can be sometimes. Like sometimes you're like, are they gonna make it or are they not? And it was a very interesting process too, because I got to see a lot of the mistakes too, right? Because we literally wrote the piece collectively as a group, and so I just earned a lot of respect for them, and we continued a collaborative relationship. And eventually I just really wanted them to be in the music video, because I was like, why not have acrobatics in a music video? And that's how that happened.
It's awesome. It's so cool. Like, you seem to have interacted with and surrounded yourself with incredible people. And I gotta think that you're kind of the glue in this as well. Like you seem to attract incredible and talented people because you're incredible and you're talented yourself. So there was no question there. It was just me singing your praises again, I guess.
Thank you. That's very nice. Yeah, I mean, I think I do try to surround myself with people that I'm very inspired by. And I think weirdly, that was one of the things about the pandemic that I was very grateful for, that even though like we were all on Zoom and it was weird, that I was able to build a lot of relationships with other artists. And yeah, it's like such a crucial, important part of being an artist, because we don't do this alone. We have to do it in community. And the pandemic really allowed me to build those relationships.
It's awesome. So, you put the songs together, and what's it like kind of getting out there and being able to perform these songs live finally? Is it freeing or scary?
It's both.
Yeah.
I think also like I was so focused on just like finishing it, getting it done, that I hadn't quite realized how much of myself I was putting out there, and like how vulnerable a lot of this music is. And I think we did some performances of it during the Fringe Festival that like were very intimate. They were just like cello, voice, and guitar arrangements of the pieces. And as I was kind of crafting the show and the banter and all the stuff, I like realized how vulnerable a lot of the stuff was. And it really like, it was like a lot of emotional energy, like getting in front of people and saying so much stuff about yourself. But at the same time, it's like, that's such an important part for me in my art, is to be authentic. And again, like going back to like the roots of why I'm so drawn to people like Regina and Nora, is that they are so much their authentic selves in their work. And I think maybe that's the most important piece of it all for me.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, like I've always found personally, and it sounds similar, that like if I'm going to be vulnerable and that that stuff wants to come out, like it does not feel good to keep it in, that to take that kind of, sometimes pain and sometimes joy, and to take that and to be able to channel it into something, to communicate it with other people. I can't think of a more beautiful thing, to be honest. Like, and like you said, it is scary, but it is very freeing to be able to kind of get it out, and hope that someone can hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that one of the biggest lessons I have learned about that, though, is like that you also have to be careful with yourself, and so I forget which other workshop I heard this in, but it's like, tell the story from the scar, not the wound.
Oh, I like that.
And I think like, admittedly, I think for Daughter of the Sea, I wasn't always telling my story from the scar. And the songs that are sometimes hard for me to get up and sing and like be okay with, like, it's like quite like that wound is still open for me in some cases. And it was like a big lesson in like maybe they're not quite ready or you're not quite ready yet to share that with
Yeah.
people, or maybe it's not something that's meant to be shared, right? It's like, why, like I struggle with that a lot too sometimes, of like this expectation that singer-songwriters are supposed to bare their souls and their pain and their everything in front of audiences, and I just like, no, maybe you can get a coloring book or a journal and and like work that stuff out in other healthier ways. But we're all just growing as people. But that was one of the biggest lessons from this record for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Is there anything not emotionally or any of that, but any of the songs that surprised you that like you feel like really came alive once you started playing them live, as opposed to kind of crafting them or in the studio or whatnot?
Yeah, I think definitely "Quiet Love."
Oh, it's my favorite song in the album. I've been holding that in my pocket. That's my favorite song in the album.
And I think it really came alive for me because I have this, on stage, I have this whole kind of banter about it, which is like kind of tell a little bit of my story with my relationship with my body specifically. And, I kind of talk about like stretch marks and weight gain and hair and getting your first gray hair and that kind of stuff. And sort of being like, you have to kind of be okay with all of those things and love yourself through all of that. And there's something very electric about performing that for people and like vocalizing that. And many people have come up to me after I've sung that song and said like, wow, I'm so grateful that you sang that because I started losing my hair when I was 23, or I got my first gray hair when I was very young, and I like, and so it's like, again, like that piece about permission, right? Of allowing folks to like to see themselves and allow them to process some of that information has been very enlightening for me and very beautiful about performing that song for people. And sometimes I like, when in like the last little bit of the song, I ask people to like look at each other and to like really see one another. And like I always say like, there is not a single person in this room who is ugly, right? Because that's true. Nobody really truly is ugly. And I think it's like, I get all mushy about it, but I do think that song is really special.
Absolutely. And like I said, like that's the one that like just kind of kicked me. Like I was just like, oh my God, it's such a beautiful sentiment and it sounds phenomenal. Like it's just a very brilliantly put together piece of music.
Thank you.
So what you kind of talked about people coming up. What have the reactions to the album been? Because that can be scary as well. Like when people want to then share with you their kind of their scars, if you will.
Yeah, I think actually it's been really positive.
Oh, that's good.
I think people have really enjoyed it. I think, with my family, I have drawn a little bit of a boundary of like, we don't although I'm sharing this stuff in song publicly, that it's not necessarily something I want to like dig up with you.
Yeah.
So I think like overall, actually, it's been really positive. I think people really love the string interlude. So like, shout out to Aaron again. And I think honestly, like, and I think a lot of artists go through this, like the most negative reaction has actually come from me. Because we want it to be perfect, right? And we wanted it to go in a very specific way. We had a vision for it. Maybe it didn't happen, or I think I had to like really be okay with it not being exactly what I wanted. But it's kind of like, somebody was telling me it's kind of like having children. Like you have to allow them to be their own people and grow to be whoever they want to be. And like, I think creative projects are very much that way of like, as much as you want to mold them into something, that they they end up showing you actually what they actually are. So yeah, I think that probably the strongest feelings have come from the author herself.
From inside the call is coming from inside the house. Yes.
Yeah.
The we talked about the Major Tom video. Are you thinking about doing any more music videos for any other song on the album?
Oh man, I would love to do a music video for Quiet Love, and I would love to do a music video for Blood is Thicker Than Water. The reality is that I ran out of money, so
yeah. Well,
but if we can do it, if we can figure out a way, 100% we'll do them.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard that. Send money. Make it happen. That's it. We need a Kickstarter.
Buy the vinyl.
There's a vinyl. I'll buy the vinyl. I'll do my part.
Yeah.
And I'll share them links. I'll try. We'll get some of them vinyls sold. We'll try to make this happen. I would love to hear this on vinyl. I've been streaming it. This seems like an album that would sound even better in the warmth of analog.
It sounds so beautiful. The strings, especially. Oh my god.
Oh, now I need it. I'm buying it as soon as this interview is done. We're gonna make that happen. So at this time, would you like to go through my little Jauntlet questionnaire? These are the questions that I ask of every guest of this show.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So it starts with the one hit wonders. These are just picking one or the other. Billy Joel or Elton John?
Elton John.
Yeah. Well, you as a piano player, I find that piano players tend to go with Elton John more, but people who just like piano tend to go with Billy Joel more. It's this is what I'm finding in my studies. This is all a data dive.
It's an unofficial poll.
It is. Well, I forget who I was talking to recently, but I originally was keeping a spreadsheet of all of the answers of this because I wanted to have quantifiable data to be able to say how people think, and it just got too overwhelming.
Oh, I hear you. So I have a nonprofit day job, and a lot of the work that I do is just collecting data.
Oh, really?
So I 100% feel you on the spreadsheets. But also it's funny, if you allow enough time to go by, the data really does tell you a story. So
yeah,
maybe the spreadsheet of yours is ready to be revived.
I'm addicted to Excel, and it's weird because I was so against it in high school and I was so against it in college, and then somehow in my old age I'm just like, oh, I can manipulate this to make it look and tell me something that isn't, So I also another spreadsheet that was started that isn't finished is I'm trying to quantitatively decide whether or not I actually like the band Weezer, and I've got a spreadsheet going of all of the songs and who wrote what song and who's playing on what to try to identify what it is about a Weezer song that I love and what it is that I can't stand, and I'm getting very close.
Wow, I would really love to see the spreadsheet.
It's a mess.
I am fascinated by this.
Well, I'll tell you what I've found so far, and I've spent a little bit of time on this, but there's a lot more to dig into. That is, I don't like Rivers working with other songwriters, and that's what the data is telling me. That when he's working by himself, the odds are much higher that I will like that song.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right? I know. It's all there. That's what Excel's good for.
Data tells a story.
Every time. The next one hit wonder, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Joan Jett.
Yeah, good answer. Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
Aretha.
Yeah, you're a singer. Of course you're going to say that. Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Pearl Jam.
Okay. Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
Janis Joplin.
Good answer. Beatles or the Stones?
Beatles.
Okay. I'm going to throw one in here. This is a special one. I've never asked it of anybody, so this is specifically tailor made for you. Norah Jones or Regina Spektor?
Ah, come on. I mean, if I had to choose, it's Regina.
Okay. I feel that. That is a tough choice. I don't even know that I could flippantly give you an answer to that if anybody asked me that. So,
yeah.
The final one-hit wonder: Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Saw that one coming a mile away. I always like to tell people that I try to guess in my head what they're going to answer, and that was one that I was pretty sure of.
Well, it's the song within the two choices.
Yeah. Yep. The next section is the top 10 countdown. And in this, as I'm sure you're aware, we use Jawn to be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be music. It can be anything you want. So, number one, what was your first Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with?
That Andrea Bocelli song, because my dad would put it in the car. I forget the name of it. I think it's Conte Partiro. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. It's the one that was in Step Brothers, correct? I think I can't remember. I'm a wedding DJ at times, so that's in the wheelhouse, you know.
Yeah, I have not seen Step Brothers, so I don't know. But
okay.
But yes, that song.
That is a absolutely beautiful song. Like incredible. Though the weirdest Bocelli thing that I've seen recently is I don't know if you have Disney Plus, but
yes,
the
it
Simpsons
is so
thing?
weird. So weird. I have a theory about this.
Yeah, lay it on.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what record label Andrea Bocelli is on, but I have a feeling that it's owned by Disney.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And and so they just put out this like Christmas album, right? Him and his kid and his daughter. And I have a feeling that they put that song in there, not just as a marketing thing, but I think also so that it would rack up a lot of royalties. Because, right? It's like, because it was showing up as like the primary banner on Disney Plus, and then you like clicked on it. And you watched it because you were like, what?
I'm still like, what? Yeah.
And then it's like every time that you play it, that song gets royalties, right? It's like a weird late stage capitalism dystopian energy. But
yeah, they did one of those with Bad Bunny too that like absolutely confuses the hell out of me. Like those little shorts that they do with The Simpsons is a thing now, and I mean I'll watch every single one of them, but
yeah, I know, but it is very strange.
Yeah, very, very. Number two, what's your current Jawn? What are you into right now?
Oh my God. Actually, I haven't been listening to a lot of music lately, but I have been reading a lot. And I'm reading The Rabbit Hutch, which I think just won like the National Book Award, and it's very good.
Okay, all right. If you're looking for some music today, it just came out the Rachel and Vilray album. Rachel from Lake Street Dive. It's incredible. It's really good.
Wow, I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, it definitely gets a Nate seal of approval on that one. So
amazing.
Number three, what was your first concert? What was the first live show you went to?
Do you want to guess?
Ooh, I don't. Kelly Clarkson?
No, it was actually Regina Spektor.
It was Regina Spektor. Okay, that was going to be my second guess, actually. But when I thought you were going to curveball me with the early Kelly Clarkson love.
No, I was like, I think 15, and there was at Dickinson College, which is in Carlisle, like very close to Harrisburg. And she was doing like a college tour, solo piano tour, and begged my mom to take me. And she did, so it was great.
Did it blow your mind? Was it an incredible show?
Oh my God. I think like I had like a digital camera. This is like mid 2000s, right? I took so many pictures. I I could not stop thinking about it. I think it like cemented in my brain that that's what I wanted to do in my life.
It's awesome. That's awesome. It all starts somewhere, and that's a beautiful place for it to start.
Yeah.
The power of live music. I love it. Number 4, what was the last concert you went to? What was the last live show you seen?
Trying to remember. I feel like maybe it was something like weird and new music-y here in New York. But I can't remember.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. If you think about it later, shout it out. No worries. Number 5, what was your favorite concert? What was the best show you've ever seen live?
I think probably St. Vincent at Union Transfer.
Ooh, that's great. What year was that?
2014.
Okay.
It was when the self-titled album came out. The one that she's like on a throne with like the white hair and the purple gown. She had a theremin. She had choreographed dance steps. She had this giant pink pyramid, and I think she's double jointed, from which she like descended from it like double jointing. Like I'm like doing a horrible job of explaining this, but it was like a very weird visual. And I think her banter has always been to kind of just be like, this, it doesn't like really make any sense. It only makes sense to her. And yeah, it was like super floored by her.
That's awesome. That sounds like an incredible show.
It was amazing.
Number 6, who have you never seen live that you would love to? They can be living or dead.
Nina Simone.
Oh, God, yeah.
And I have a very specific one.
Yeah? Oh, good.
The 1979 Live at Monroe. I mean, there's like videos of it and like an album of it as well, but she like kicked, like somebody like tries to leave the concert and she's like, "You're not leaving."
It's awesome.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been there for that.
Yeah, definitely. The I always have this thing that I always say, which is thou shalt not cover the Beatles, and then because I made a playlist of like just all these times that people tried to cover the Beatles and failed, but then I have a follow-up playlist that is, but if you're going to do it better than the Beatles. And Nina Simone's Here Comes the Sun is on my Better Than the Beatles. Fiona Apple, we talked about earlier, her Across the Universe to me is better than the Beatles.
Yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire, Got to Get You Into My Life, better than the Beatles.
Yep.
It's a tough playlist. It's a tough. It definitely goes hard.
Do you have data points for these?
No, this was pre-data points, but now like maybe Aerosmith Come Together. I might have to quantify making it onto the playlist.
Okay. What is your criteria? I'm just kidding.
I gotta throw it in a pivot table to be able to truly see what I'm looking at first before I can start to let it define what tracks.
Amazing.
Number 7, name an unappreciated Jawn. Name something you wish had some more exposure to it.
Oh my God. I had a really hard time thinking about this one. But I think I'm going to say that I feel like people who listen to indie pop, like whatever is popular right now, have like real aversion to classical music. And so, yeah, I just I'm going to say like people need to listen to more contemporary classical music because I feel like that there's actually a lot of crossover for me. I don't know.
No, that's a great answer. Or is there any contemporary classical that you're like really into right now? Like someone you could suggest if a listener was like, okay, let me take you up on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely like the Attaka Quartet and Carolyn Shaw collaborations are really amazing.
Perfect.
And they just did an album that came out last year. I think it's called Evergreen. That's like so good.
I'm adding it to the list. That's fantastic. Number 8, what's your favorite album?
I mean, this one's also really hard for me. But I think it's actually a tie between two Fiona Apple records, the When the Pawn and Idler's Wheel.
Yeah.
Those two records are like so good.
Yeah, I'm an obsessive of When the Pawn, specifically because John Bryan is like one of my gods, and Fiona as a writer, like just the two of them together. I wish they would never have stopped kind of collaborating because.
Oh my God, that record is like. Yeah, I definitely went through a phase where like that was like the only thing I could listen to, and I very specifically got obsessed with that with Love Ridden. It's like one of the lyric in that is devastating, and so good. I don't know. It's just like ugh.
Yeah, that's one of the things about her that, like, I'm not going to say that is overlooked because, you know, she's known as just a master penman, but, like, lyrically, like, her ability to turn phrases that, like, don't just make you, like, don't just stab you, but also then, like, you have to think about that stab wound for the next day. Like, my God, like, this is brilliant.
Yeah, she's so good. And like, of course, I've like gone down the rabbit hole of like the YouTube Fiona Apple interviews, right? But there was this one, and I can't remember exactly which interview it was, but she talks about how she writes lyrics in her head when she's walking. And that I think she ends up having a lot of triplets in her head, because it's like of the pattern and the beat that she's walking to. And if I like that totally makes like, then I was hearing it everywhere when she, like in her songs. And yeah, it was like a crazy kind of process thing that was like staring me right in the face, but I could never really hear until she said it out loud for me.
That is like a very interesting skeleton key to her songs. Like that's, I now want to go listen and see if I can pinpoint this. Like,
yeah, she's amazing.
That's so cool. Number 9, in my head, I'm answering this one. Name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they put out.
I mean, the trifecta, Regina, Nora, and Fiona Apple.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, this is a good guess. Good guess, Nate. And number 10, the 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time?
My favorite Jawn of all time. Actually, this is a song in Spanish. It's super cheesy. It's an 80s ballad by Rocío Dúrcal, who was like a Spanish 80s diva. It's called La Gata Bajo la Lluvia, which translates to like the cat under the rain, but specifically like the female cat under the rain.
Interesting.
And it is the most epic like breakup ballad in the history of ever. And I think it like came up in my memory again because there was like a drag show in which one of like the drag queens was doing lip syncing to that song, and it was just like so good. But I highly recommend it to everyone. I think you need to get like past the cheese and just like listen to the lyric and her delivery to like really love it. But it's an epic song.
Brilliant. Now here's a question I always have to ask when someone loves a song that much. Have you thought about covering it?
100%. It's like one of my dreams to sing that song. I think that like the band has had it's been a tough pill to swallow for the band. But I think like Latin American audiences really know that song and really understand that song. So definitely I'm wanting to really put it in my repertoire this year.
Very cool. Very cool. We'll be excited to hear it. You know, one of the things you mentioned during this that I did want to touch upon is your work with nonprofits. To talk a little bit about kind of who you're working with currently and who you've worked with in the past.
Yeah, so right now I'm a program associate at the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. I live in New York now, and specifically work in the grants department. So what we do is that we get like big chunks of money from the city and the state to redistribute as small artist grants for artists specifically living in Manhattan and for public-facing projects specifically taking place in Manhattan. So yeah, you can, if you're an artist living in Manhattan, please check out the grants because they're there for you. They're public funds, so that's really amazing. And so that's the current work that I'm doing. And in the past, in Philly as a teaching artist, I worked with World Cafe Live. I was doing the Lullaby Project, which is a collaboration with Carnegie Hall. And I did Mighty Songs, which was a collaboration with Mighty Writers. And I was an intern at Fringe Arts for the summer of 2019, which was like an amazing time. I had the best time of my life. I didn't want to leave. They kind of had to like be like, so when's your last day? As an intern. And for like a little brief period of time when I first got to New York, I did a little bit of marketing for New York City Center. And yeah, I've kind of been like all over the map a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, to me, it's a beautiful thing because not only are you kind of creating this incredible kind of wealth of discography and a songbook, but you're also helping others to kind of be able to fulfill that same dream. And that's just, I mean, that's like the most admirable thing in the world to me. Like that's beautiful.
Oh. Well, thank you. I mean, it's definitely a hard balance to like have a full-time job and your artistic practice and understand how those two things work together. But I will say that the most fulfilling part of my job right now is knowing that very deserving artists are getting money to pursue projects that they really care about. And I get to see a lot of art in the city, which is like, so it's like the best part of my job, I think. So, yeah.
It's so cool. So what's next? Do you have, are you working on another album currently, or are you kind of living with this one for a while and touring or playing shows and whatnot?
Yeah, I think I'm living with this one for a minute. I put myself on sabbatical because I really needed to rest at the end of the year. And I think right now I'm just kind of like figuring out what's next. And definitely there'll be some shows in the future. So if you follow me on socials and things like that, I'll be sure to keep you updated with everything that I'm up to.
That's fantastic. Why don't you give these fine folks the socials, how they can track you down?
Yeah, so on Instagram at Laura Lizcano Music, that's LauraLizcano Music, and it's the same on Facebook. And I have a TikTok that I don't really use, but it's the same username. And yeah, and my website, lauralizcanomusic.com. You can sign up for my newsletter, and on Bandcamp, all of those things. You can follow me on one, and all the links will lead you to all the other ones.
Perfectly. Well said. Well said. And all of the links will be included in the show notes to this show. Laura, thank you so much for doing this. Like I said, I am absolutely a fan of yours and a fan of this latest album, Daughter of the Sea, which is available on her Bandcamp, folks, like we just said. And there's vinyl, sweet, sweet vinyl. So make sure you're picking that up. Is there anything you'd like to leave these cool cats and kittens with today?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, I hope that you all listen to the music and that I think you'll really enjoy it, especially the strings. So please enjoy it. Enjoy it.
My thanks again to Laura for joining me on the show today. You can find more about Laura on her website, www.lauralizcanomusic.com. Her album, Daughter of the Sea, is available now on vinyl through her Bandcamp page at lauralizcano.bandcamp.com, and of course is streaming wherever you stream music from. Her music video for the Bowie-inspired Major Tom featuring the Almanac Dance Circus Theater is up on YouTube, and you can find her on the socials at Laura Lizcano Music. Links to all of those, as always, are included in the show notes. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And of course, the deal forever remains. If you want to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout merit badge for citizenship of the world, all you gotta do is give us a little rating and review. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for articles, merchandise, and links to all of the previous episodes of this podcast. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for the mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight to your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out and touch some Jawn. All right, does anybody even remember those old Bell or AT&T commercials? The reach out and touch someone. Yeah, I do this every week, and I'm probably the only old ass who knows what I'm referencing there. Such is the life. Look, we all know this show is just for me anyway. So thank you yet again for indulging the whimsy of a man in his 40s, sitting in his basement broadcasting to the world his futile attempt to humor himself. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/ytmj/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.